Okay, this is the second video to do the examples in your interactive notebook. So in the last video, we were on page 10, and we did the solving one-step equation examples. And then we did, back up. We started with page 8, and we did the simplifying expressions examples. And then we did the one-step equation examples on page 10. Okay, so now we're going to flip over to the two-step equation and inequality examples for that one. So go ahead and write these down. Okay, so number one, we're doing two-step. Okay, so again, you can do them either way you'd like. So I'm going to do the first couple both ways, and then the last ones I'll just do one way. Okay, so number one says negative 15 equals negative 4m plus 5. So first I have to undo any addition or subtraction. So first I'm going to undo the plus 5. So I'm going to have to subtract 5 from both sides. Over here, they go to 0. Bring down my negative 4m. And then negative 15 minus 5 is going to give me negative 20. Okay, now I have negative 4 times m, so I'm going to undo multiplication by using division. So negative 4 divided by negative 4 gives me 1. So I have 1m. And then negative 20 over negative 4 gives me positive 5. So my final answer, m equal 5. Okay, if you want to do the do and undo method, we start with our m, we multiply by a negative 4, then we add 5, and that gives us our answer of equal to negative 15. So then I start with equal to negative 15. I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtract 5. So that gives me negative 20, and then I have to do the opposite of that, which is divide by negative 4. Remember, the negatives don't change here. They have to be the same, okay? So if you multiply by negative 4, you have to divide by negative 4. Okay, the negatives don't change, just the multiplication and division changes. And then that gives us our final answer that we got before, which is positive 5. Okay, next one. I'm going to have to distribute first. So negative 2 times x is just negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. And then bring down my less than 20. Okay, now I can undo any addition or subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. That gives me a negative 2x is less than 20 minus 8 is 12. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. And that gives me x is less than negative 6. Okay, if we want to graph that on a number line. We put our negative numbers there. We would put an open circle at 6, and it's less than, so we would shade to the left. Okay, if we want to do it the do-undo method, we would start with our x. We do inside the parenthesis first, so then we would minus 4. Then we would multiply the negative 2, and we would get our answer less than 20. So when we undo, we start with less than 20. We're going to do the opposite of multiply. We're going to divide by negative 2. 20 divided by negative 2 is what? Negative 10. We're going to do the opposite of plus 4. So we're going to, opposite of minus 4. So we're going to add 4. And that gives us our final answer of negative 6. X is less than negative 6. Okay, next one. Okay, we've got 8 plus b over 4 equals 5. So again, I have to undo any addition or subtraction first. So right now the 8 is what is added. So I have to subtract 8 from both sides. That gives me the b over 4 equals 5 minus 8 is negative 3. b divided by 4, in order to undo division, I have to multiply both sides by 4. Okay, when I multiply the top, so I get 4b, and then 1 times 4 gives me 4 on the bottom. And then negative 3 times 4 gives me negative 12. And of course my 4's divide out, and I'm left with 1b, or just b by itself, equals negative 12. Do undo. We're going to start with b, divide by 4, and then we would add the 8, and that would give us our answer. So we start with our answer. Opposite of plus 8 is minus 8. 5 minus 8 again gives us negative 3. Divided by 4, we do the opposite, so we're going to times by 4, and that gives us our answer, b equals negative 12. Okay, notice I'm doing the same exact steps in the same order. It's just a different way to write it both ways. Okay, in the first one I subtracted 8 and then I divided by 4. Here I subtracted 8 and then multiplied by 4, and here I did the same thing. You're doing the same math, it's just a different way to write it. Okay, alright, last one on this page. Okay, we have n plus 5 on the top here. This n plus 5 is all in the numerator of our fraction, so we have to clear the fraction before we can do anything with the n plus 5. Right now the n plus 5 is kind of together, okay? So since this is one big fraction, which is different from the problem above, we have to get rid of this denominator on the bottom before we can do anything with the n plus 5. So right now we have division. We have something divided by negative 16. So to clear that out, we're going to multiply both sides by negative 16. Okay? So on the left side, I'm going to have the negative 16 times what was already there, and then the negative 16 on the bottom. On the right side, negative 1 times negative 16 is positive 16. Okay, here when I have the negative 16 divided by negative 16, those divide out. So now all I have is n plus 5 equals positive 16. And now I can take care of the 5 by subtracting it from both sides. So I have 16 minus 5 gives me positive 11. Okay, on the do undo, I start with my variable. Here once I started with that, then I would add the 5. Then I would take that whole thing and divide by negative 16, and that would give me my answer of negative 1. Start with negative 1. Opposite of divide is multiply. Again, it stays a negative 16. The negative does not change. Negative times negative gives me a positive 16. Opposite of plus 5 is minus 5, and we get the same answer we got before. Okay, flip it over. We're going to do some new topics. Okay, so we're on page 13 was where you glued in your solving equations and inequalities foldable that we did the first day. So this is what we're going to start using for multi-step equations when they get more complex, okay? So I'm going to be reading off of these little tabs, or checking off these little tabs as I do the problems on this page, but I can't show both on the screen, okay? So I'm just going to show this one. Okay, multi-step equations and inequality examples. We got 4 examples. This is on page 14 of your notebook. Okay, so the first thing on the inequalities on the yellow tab, it says, are there any parentheses? Well, no, there's no parentheses. Okay. So then it says, look at each side. Are there like terms on the left or the right? Well, I have x and no x, so those are not like terms. And then I have x and no x, so I don't have any like terms on either side. Okay? Now it says on the third yellow tab, it says, do you have variables on both sides of the equal sign? Well, look at this. I have a variable here, and I have a variable here. So yes, I do have variables on both sides of the equal sign. Okay? So if you flip that one over to the green tab, it will tell you you're going to have to move the smaller coefficient over to the other side. Okay? And you can move them either way. You don't have to move the small one if you don't want to. Okay? I like to get all my x's on the left side because I like my x to be on the left. So that usually seems to be easier. So I need to move this 4x so it can be over here with the negative 5x. Okay? So right now, the 4x is positive, right? So how do I undo a positive? I have to subtract. Okay, and if you like drawing your line under the equal sign, you can do that too. So when I have positive 4x minus 4x, that goes to 0. Negative 5x minus 4x gives me negative 9x. And then I still have the positive 9 over here, and I still have the positive 18 on the right. Okay, so now that I have all my x's over here, I need to get all my numbers on this side. Okay? So that means the positive 9 is in my way. It's not on the right side. It's not on the correct side, I should say. Okay? So I need to get this 9 over here with the 18 because I want all my x's on this side and all my numbers without x's on this side. So it's a plus 9. I undo that by doing minus 9. So over here I just have minus 9x now, and 18 minus 9 gives me positive 9. Okay, now I can undo the, now I'm back to like my one-step equation, which is what we started with last week. So now if I have negative 9 times x, I undo that by division. Remember, these have to match. If it's negative 9, it has to be negative 9 down here and negative 9 over here. Okay, so that gives me x equal 9 divided by negative 9 is negative 1. Okay, we can double check that by plugging it in. So if we do negative 5, plug in negative 1 for x, plus 9, equal 4, parenthesis, negative 1 for x, plus 18. Okay, if we get our calculator out, so we can do negative 5, parenthesis, negative 1, plus 9. That gives me 14. And if we do the other side, we do 4, parenthesis, negative 1, plus 18. That gives me 14. So, did I get the same thing on both sides? Yes, I did. That's how I know I did my math correct. Let's try another one. Okay, now we have an inequality. So, same steps. We need to make sure our answer also has an inequality, and we'll graph it. Okay, so go back to your foldable. First yellow tab. Are there any parentheses? Nope. Move on. Okay, second tab. Are there any like terms on the left side? So just look at the left side of your equation. Are there any like terms? Well, I have 7x and I have 4x. Those are like terms. So you're going to have to go ahead and combine those because they're all on the same side. So when they're all on the same side, you just do whatever the sign says. So this says 7x plus 4x. So a 7x plus a 4x gives me 11x. I still have my minus 10, and I still have greater than or equal to negative 10. Okay, now I just have a two-step equation. This is what we were doing last class. Okay, so how do I undo minus 10? I add 10. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. And how do I undo 11 times x? I divide. So I have x is greater than or equal to 0. We can draw our number line. We would have a closed circle at 0, and it's greater than, so we would shade to the right. Okay, last thing I want to do on this video is, these are some similar equations, but they say solve for y. So notice in these equations I have a y and I have an x. So now I have two variables, okay? but I only want to solve for one of them. So my answer is going to have an x in it, okay? And it's just going to be set equal to y. So the same rules still apply, but instead of solving for x, I'm now trying to get the y by itself, okay? So I'm trying to get this guy to be by himself on the left side. So anything that's not a y needs to go over to the right side of the equation. So again, we start with anything that's added or subtracted. So I need to take care of this 4 first. So I need to move a positive 4 over to the other side. I do that by subtraction. So I still have my positive 2y. Now over here, this has an x and my 4 doesn't. So they are not like terms. I cannot combine them because they don't both have an x. So if I can't combine them, what I have to do is just write them next to each other. So I can't make it 6x because the 4 doesn't have an x. So all I do is I write the 10x and then I write the minus 4 because I can't put them together. So I just write them next to each other. Okay, the last thing, I have positive 2 times y. Same thing, I undo that by division. And when you do that, you have to divide everything by 2. So here my 2's divide out and I'm left with y. 10 divided by 2 is 5, but I still have that x, so 5x. And negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Now I've gotten the y by itself on the left side, which is what I wanted. My answer has an x in it, but that's fine, and I am done. So basically, I'm just rearranging the equation to get the y by itself, not the x. But we're using the same rules every single time. Let's try one more. 2y minus 4 equals 4x. Okay, so first step is I want to get this 2y by itself. I want it to be the only thing on the left side. So this minus 4 needs to go on the right side. How do I undo minus 4? Plus 4. Okay, so bring down the 2y. 4x and 4 are not like terms, so I cannot put them together. So I write them next to each other on the next line. So 4x plus 4, that's all I can do. I cannot combine those because they're not like terms. Okay, last thing, I want to get y by itself. So right now I have 2y. I don't want 2y, I just want y. So that's 2 times y. To undo that, I divide everything by 2. And when you divide, you have to divide everything. So the 2's divide out. But over here I have 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and I still have the x. And then positive 4 divided by 2, again, is 2, but that one has no x, so just 2 by itself. I've gotten the y by itself. My answer has an x in it. That's fine. That's my answer. Okay, we're going to use this to be able to graph lines. In order to graph lines, we have to have it in this equation, and in order to put it in our calculator, we have to have it in this equation. So this is a very, very important skill, this whole solving for y thing. We're going to use that from here on out to the end of the year. Okay, those were the 8 example problems for these 2 pages. If at any time you felt I was going too fast, just pause the video or rewind the video and rewatch that problem. Okay, you need to have all of these 8 problems done in your notebook by next time.